Welcome to this episode of the Proud to be LBUSD podcast series. I'm your host, Shelby Green, senior at Millikan High School, and today we have Mr. Elijah Sims, who is the new Interim Director for the Long Beach College Promise. Today we'll be learning about how the College Promise program impacts the educational community in Long Beach and what it has to offer students in LBUSD. Hi, Mr. Sims. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the studio.
Shelby, did you say Millikan?
Yes, I did.
What? Go Rams.
Go Rams. So before we dive into the College Promise itself, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background in education and what led you to take on this position. So tell us a little about your college experience and what inspired you to work with students and expand equity in education.
Yeah, well, I've got to go back even further than the college experience, really, and just shout out to the parents. My parents' experience is really what kind of contextualizes and makes my college experience more meaningful and gives me sort of more purpose. So my mother, who's passed away, now it's got to be 4 years. She's got 6 brothers and sisters, and grew up in Ohio, was a 4.0 student. At the end of high school in Ohio, she went to someone to just sort of ask, okay, what should I do next? How do I do the next thing? Because in her head, the next thing is college, of course, right?
Right.
But, she didn't know how to do it. She was from a single mom in a sort of low-income rural area. And the person at that time who was there to help the students plan their next steps told her that she should be a cosmetologist. And, my mom loved doing hair, right? So for her, it didn't sound like a terrible idea. But I think in hindsight, she realized that was the only opportunity presented to her.
Mm-hmm.
And, as a 4.0 student, it's fine to present that opportunity, but that probably shouldn't be the only opportunity that's presented to you, right?
Right.
So that knowledge affects me. Then I've got my father, and he's got 13 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Yeah. Also from a very low-income neighborhood. He had 2 parents for part of his life and then a single mom for most of it. And in spite of all of that, his mother educated through college all 13 of her kids. And, that blows my mind because they were all receiving cash aid. They were food insecure. They had housing, right? But folks had to work and really struggle hard in order to do well in his family. And just through a lot of tenacity, through a lot of grit, he was able to push himself through. And his brothers and sisters, of course, helped. So if you see them together now, it's like being at a pep rally. You have 13 people cheering you on, right? So those things sort of form the basis of my experience academically. I come from parents who valued education, sometimes struggled to have access to it, or struggled to take advantage of it, or struggled to make it all the way to the finish line, right? And then for me, I also have a disability. I grew up with a really bad speech impediment. It's taken me years to work on my fluency.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I feel like I can do that fairly well, but early on academically, that was a great challenge. So it was really huge for me when we moved from Ohio to Long Beach, because Long Beach was the first place where in elementary school I got services for my disability. I met my first speech pathologist in Long Beach when I was attending Bixby. And that was really the beginning of what changed my life. I wouldn't be able to be here with you if I didn't have that experience. So I went from Bixby to Stanford to Milliken, go Rams, right? And after that, I went to Long Beach City College. I was there for 2 years. Then I went to Cal State Long Beach. I was there for 2 years. Got a bachelor's in philosophy, taught K-12 for a while. And that's where I fell in love with just teaching students and being with and around students and their families. I did that in LA Unified School District. Then I got a master's at Cal State Dominguez. So shout out to the Toros. I did take a detour from Long Beach for a second, went to Carson, did my master's there. So go Toros. And now I'm in the EDD program at Cal State Long Beach again. So most of my educational experience has been in Long Beach. A lot of my lens toward educational opportunities and the value of it comes from what I know about my parents' experience and what I experienced growing up as their son.
Definitely. Yeah. It's fascinating to hear about that. And I can see how it's fueled you a little bit, because now that you know about your parents' experience and even your own experience, you want to make sure no one misses out on getting to
Absolutely.
take advantage of their potential. So
Yeah.
going back to, your position as the interim director for College Promise, I'd like to start by just getting like a visualization of what it does here in Long Beach. So it's described as extending the promise of a college education in Long Beach to every student. So give us an idea of what utilizing that College Promise program would really look like for a student here.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I love your wrap of the first question. Ultimately, I became a counselor at Long Beach City College because I wanted to make sure that what happened to my mother, in part, didn't happen to any students that I got to work with and serve.
Right.
Right. And so, I bring that with me, that level of intentionality and heart into the work as interim College Promise director. On the way here, I passed through Signal Hill, and when I drove through Signal Hill, I'm not sure if you go there often, but there are folks all over the hill exercising, right? So you got some folks on the hill running, and others jogging, and others walking, and you've even got bikes and you've got skateboards. So there's movement all over the hill, and it's at all different speeds. And I thought, what an apt metaphor in some ways for making it through an educational system. You've got some folks who are going to run up to the top of the hill and never stop once and get there quickly and efficiently. And you've got other folks who will run for a little bit, stop and walk. You've got someone else who might need to actually take a seat and catch their breath for a moment.
Right.
And that just made me think, our students who are going through their academic journey are not entirely different from this. But what is different is through the Long Beach College Promise, they also have us. So, let's stay with this metaphor for a little bit longer. So you've got someone who's running up the hill. They didn't need much at all, but maybe at the end, because they have us, right? They've had someone cheering them on the whole way. And at the very end, we've got a nice towel waiting for them. You've got someone else who needed to stop halfway, but that's okay because we've set up a nice canopy so there's shade, right?
Yeah.
And while they're stopping, we're going to be there and share some important information that might help them for the rest of the journey. For folks who haven't started yet, maybe what we have is a map that says, hey, this is how long your journey is going to be. These are some of the different directions that you could take. This is what the terrain will be like. Have fun. And we've got your back, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what the College Promise is. So if we step away from that metaphor and look at students who are going through Long Beach Unified, they're going through LBCC, they're going through Cal State Long Beach. They're not just going through those experiences. Because of the College Promise, they have us. So we're going to be there to cheer them on. We're also going to be able to give them a map that says, hey, this is what's coming and this is how you prepare.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be able to intentionally put in supports along the way, anticipating the student's need, right? So if you need a little additional support, then in Long Beach Unified School District, there's the Male Leadership Academy, there's the Female Leadership Academy. If maybe because of your lived experience or where you're from, you haven't had a lot of exposure to different careers. Okay, well, once you get to high school, there's linked learning. And linked learning is going to have pathways that flavor certain classes for you. So you get a sense of, what it's like at Cabrillo to learn a little bit more about administration of justice or the court system, or what it's like at Millikan to be in MIT and have some CTE experience that relates specifically to technology. Maybe you didn't have that exposure in your community, but you get that exposure at your high school. At the community college level, there are also intentional supports, transitional supports into the community college, Viking Summer Voyage.
Right.
Supports in the first year experience. We have, at this point, nearly 70 coaches whose job it is to just look at students holistically and see what kinds of supports that they're going to need that we can anticipate and reach out and offer them, whether that's on the phone or if that's on social media, whether that's on email. Students check your email. Students don't check their emails anymore, but sometimes that's the best way for us to share information with you. Help us out, create a professional email account and check it sometimes, right?
Right.
So what the College Promise seeks to do is look at students holistically and look at them with an equity lens and an asset mindset. What are students bringing to the table with their lived experience? And what is it our responsibility to supplement? What maybe are they missing?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a little bit of exposure to careers? Is that the need for mentorship? Is that the need for a transitional program? Do you need some additional supports in that first year? Is it a counselor? Is it an orientation? What is it? What does our data tell us? What do our students tell us? What can we anticipate? And what can we build into your experience so you don't have to know to activate it yourself?
Right.
So I'm really excited to be able to be a part of that because we have 5 partners. So the port is doing that. The city of Long Beach is doing that. Cal State Long Beach is doing that. LBCC is doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And Long Beach Unified School District. And what my job is, in addition to helping the individual partners enhance the things that they're already doing, is to make sure that the partners know the kinds of services and intentional supports that are available to students amongst the partners. More importantly, to make sure that students and families ultimately know what those supports are.
Right. And I really liked your use of that metaphor on the hill. I think that ties in greatly to the equity that I see being shown from the College Promise, helping a student wherever they are, adapting to their individual needs. And that actually ties into the next question I have for you. So I know you've worked on addressing issues about equity gaps in the past, and that's what part of your job is right now. So how does the College Promise reduce some of those gaps? And you already covered that a little bit with mentioning those connections that you give students. But more specifically, what does this program mean for students of different ethnic groups, of financial abilities?
So if I could focus on 2 things, and I'm only, I don't know, a month and a half into my job here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still learning the partners and
and
all the amazing work that they do. But what's emerged as I understand the College Promise a little bit better is there are 2, I think, primary focuses and benefits that really have the potential to close equity gaps. One of them is ongoing and continued enhanced training academically. And another is building on that training that happens. How does that translate into workforce development and ultimately job placement? So let's go the reverse way this time. Let's begin with the end in mind. The city of Long Beach wants to train and maintain the talent of its residents who are in the city of Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the employees who work in the city of Long Beach are actually not from the city of Long Beach. But the city of Long Beach is actually also one of the most diverse cities, period, in the US. So that implies that we have large communities of color who don't necessarily work in the city of Long Beach. And that's something that the city is working intentionally to address, in part through the Long Beach College Promise. How do we get our talented workforce from the city to stay here, and not just for jobs, but for great jobs? Well, one way to do that is through intentional workforce development.
Right.
And another way is through intentional academic preparation.
Mm-hmm.
So the Long Beach College Promise is trying to do both of those things. How do we make sure that more students have intentional academic training that ties to, CTE if students are into the trades, or that tied to the bachelor's, the master's, the doctorate route? My best friend in the world, who I met in middle school, his name is Ruben. We met at Stanford Middle School. So Ruben decided to go into trades, and I decided to pursue a bachelor's and then a master's, and now I'm working toward a doctorate. What I always showed students in my counseling class, because I used to teach at LBCC a class called Counseling 1, is that me and Ruben almost always made the exact same amount of money. While I was making a salary that tied to the level of education that I had, whether that was the 60 units close to an associate's degree or the bachelor's degree around 120 units, Ruben, because of his training and promotions and years of service, also always incrementally made more.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not bad if a student wants to go into the trades. It's not bad if a student wants to get a bachelor's. What's important is that all students have the information to choose the right pathway for them.
Right.
And that hopefully Long Beach reaps the benefits of that by keeping our well-educated and trained students. Because what that has the potential to do is not just transform the student's life, but transform the family's life and transform the community's life,
Right.
and ultimately the entire city.
Definitely. And I can see from what you're saying that this College Promise program, especially using your work on the job, you can tell as well, but it has an effect on these students, not only in their college life, but in their work life. How not only will it affect their education and bridging those equity gaps, like you were saying, but in their whole life, lead to a fuller life, getting that job that they want, regardless of ethnic group, financial ability. That's great to see and hear from your perspective and even your personal experience, seeing that firsthand. Being a Long Beach student myself, I've been in the district a while, but I can see, I remember in fourth grade, I went on a field trip to Cal State Long Beach with the College Promise and got a packet of College Promise paperwork. And that's before I even applied to high school. So I definitely can recognize that these are opportunities that people can take before going to college. So tell us a little more about those opportunities. I realize there's scholarships, there's the college pledge, college internships, things like that.
Yeah. So I mentioned that I now have these friends who are starting to grow their families, and their kids are now in elementary, middle school. Some of them are even in high school. And you mentioned elementary school. So in elementary school, Long Beach families who have their students in Long Beach Unified School District have the opportunity to, in the fourth grade and the fifth grade, go to college.
Mhm.
What do I mean by that? Well, you experienced it,
Yeah.
right? So in the fourth grade, you get to go to LBCC and spend a day there and just feel the energy of being on a college campus. And what is the goal? Well, some students really haven't done that. Some students or their families don't necessarily see a place for them on a college campus. And LBCC and Cal State Long Beach don't see it like that. Right?
Right.
We see a place for all of our students in the city who want to work for that goal to be there, right?
Mhm.
So in the fifth grade, they have a chance to go to Cal State Long Beach. And then after that, there's a pledge. The pledge is really just about manifestation,
Mhm.
right? So I'm just going to put it out there into the world, into the universe today. I'm going to get an education to better my life, to better my family's life, to better my community. If it's not a binding contract of any sort, right?
Right.
But it is a great example of manifestation, because sometimes if we want a thing, we have to name it. And so it gives students an opportunity to do that. They get to name what they want, who they want to be, um, after having an opportunity to just be on that college campus and experience that space. It's a great kind of foreshadowing.
Mhm.
And it's actually really inspiring for the college students to be there. And then you just see a parade of munchkins. Because our students know what's happening. They know that's the college promise.
Yeah.
And they know that those students are looking to them as role models. And what a great reminder. Hey, hit the books, go to the library, go to that class, right? Turn in
Mhm.
that paper, because the next group of students who's hoping to follow in your footsteps sees you as a success. So let's make good on that.
Yeah. And um other than just, that college pledge and those field trips that you experience very young as a student here, even in high school, I recognize there are still some opportunities like internships being one,
Yes.
scholarships being another, and even the AP exams that we take lead us kind of make a culture of promoting further education.
And
And
dual enrollment. Yeah.
right,
Mhm.
definitely. And that even makes a nice segue into my next question for you. But having, obviously, you've worked very closely with students and the program. So you have a deep understanding of how that equitable education instilled from a young age can affect the trajectory of students' whole lives and really change the game for them. So then, tying kind of back to our last question, other than just bringing these students to a college when they're young, showing them what is possible for their future, seeing these other students who came from the same place that they did, how does this college promise affect the community as a whole?
Yeah.
And also, adding on to that, have you seen changes in the way that the community regards education rather than just from a student perspective?
Yeah. That's a that's a big question. I when I think of the way that the college promise affects communities as a whole, I am the college promise. I'm a student who maybe shouldn't be here according to the data,
Hmm.
according to the disability and the identity as a Black male, and you know coming from parents who struggled to get an education and then struggled financially to make it. um there there are all the reasons that you can think of that maybe I shouldn't be here. And what happened for me is I met a sequence of the right people at the right time. And what we want to do is take the luck out of it for students.
Hmm.
I was just really lucky, maybe, or blessed, right? And we want to learn from that and not continue to rely on that, because we do have amazing teachers at every level and administrators at every level and industry professionals at every level. But we shouldn't know that students need additional support and then not provide it. Mm-hmm. So what the College Promise can do for communities is apply an equity lens to a student's lived experience so that all students throughout the city of Long Beach really have an honest chance to do the thing that they want to do and to become the professional that they want to be. And really so that in the city of Long Beach, after we've done that intentional work to help cultivate and develop that student, the city then thinks intentionally about what opportunities exist for that student to then take advantage of. And not just after they've gone all the way through, but the port has scholarships and internships, right? And Pacific Gateway has workforce development opportunities and is interested in cultivating more of those for students and communities. And the mayor's office has these opportunities. And there's workforce development at LBCC and at Cal State Long Beach. And there are also career centers there. And those centers are really about, one, how do we help you choose the thing that you're hoping to work toward? And also, how do we help you to identify some experiences so that once you're done, you're ready to actually enter that field? I think the Long Beach College Promise has an opportunity to train and maintain the diverse community that we have in the city, to cultivate talent and to create a more equitable, educational, and ultimately professional experience for students. And that kind of work is transformative. So I'm so happy that the city sees value in that, and the port sees value in that, and the educational partners all see value in that. I think the single most inspiring part of this first month and a half of work is I've already known that LBCC, because that's where I originated at prior to entering this role.
Right.
I knew that LBCC had really thoughtful, intentional, amazing people, from staff and faculty all the way up to leadership. What I didn't know is that these amazing people are all over the city. There's amazing people who are invested in students all over the city. And so the other thing that the College Promise hopes to do is, how do we help those people to see each other and connect for the benefit of students?
Right. And especially I'm seeing from everything you're mentioning, that element of sustainability, about the equity that this program just teaches you very young. And I feel like you might be a testament to this yourself, having gone through this system with the College Promise, just even having it there for you, no matter if you need it or not. But it teaches you that equity is important, that it's important to give every student an opportunity, give every person an opportunity. And then that can apply beyond just their education, like in the workplace, like how you were saying, it can affect our community as a whole by creating these workers that value equity. Just like you've become invested in this in your work, and that is very inspiring to see, as a student who came from the very roots of this program, that now you have continued to use this foundation in your life and that you want to help other students with this.
I've been very fortunate, and I stand on the shoulders of a lot of women and a lot of men and LGBTQ, African American women. I mention in particular because I'd say three out of four people who've allowed me to stand on their shoulders
Mm-hmm.
in order to do that next thing has been a woman. And the majority of those have been women of color. But our diverse community is one that's really embraced me, and I wouldn't be here without them. So I'm excited about the future for the promise, but also the more I learn, I'm just getting excited about Long Beach.
Right.
So I was just at the Cambodian Cultural Center that opened that compound, and I know there's some intentional plans to open more centers around the city for the Latinx community, for the African American community. I know the city did the framework for reconciliation. I mean, it's a wonderful time to be in Long Beach. So for all of the people who've just kind of helped me to be here in this moment, I thank them, and it absolutely started with my teachers and continued on into my professional career. So hopefully, if I'm fortunate enough, I'll be able to continue to pay that forward to other students.
Right. I definitely see that in the position you're in. It's a great way. You even can see yourself, you're impacting all these students' lives with just promoting the College Promise program. So as we close, going back to that student-driven force, what would you say to a current senior in high school in our school district who's maybe nervous about college applications, who doesn't know what to do for college, or is worried about their future? How would the College Promise play into their lives or relieve certain stressors they have?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's okay to be nervous.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it's okay to be in an experience where there are things that you don't know. If we're fortunate enough to continue on living this life, then that's going to be happening to us over and over again. So, embrace those moments. And one of the best gifts that a teacher ever gave me was just reminding me that it's not always what you know that's important. It's being able to identify that you don't know something, because that's the key element of information literacy. Um, and an awareness that there's something that you don't know, and a willingness to go seek that information out. And I want to tell those seniors that if you do that, we're going to try and meet you halfway, or we're going to try and meet you before you even knew you had the question or had the problem, right? Because we want to anticipate your need. So lean in is what I would say. Don't be afraid to take risk or ask questions, and understand that people all over the city have your back. So if we don't find you first, then come find us.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a question about the Long Beach College Promise, then of course you can always contact me. I've got a bunch of different emails now because I work for the whole partnership. But I think the one where it's easiest to find me is esims@lbcc.edu. You can always reach me there, and I can always kind of triage and direct folks accordingly.
Right. So that's great to hear what you just said about we can ask you, as a senior myself, that's great to hear. I know a lot of people are nervous, but just knowing that this College Promise, like you kept saying, has your back. It's great to know that that support is there, whatever stage you're at. And I think our conversation today has been really great. I know that any seniors listening will be reassured. So just a last question, is there anything that I didn't ask you about the College Promise that you want to share with us?
Parents, we've got your back too. So students don't go through this journey alone, and sometimes it feels to students like they need to go through it alone, especially if they're first gen and maybe they're thinking, well, mom or dad or uncle or auntie or grandma, they didn't experience this, so they don't know how to help me. Well, as we're doing an orientation for your son or daughter, come. You know, as we're answering questions on the phone, ask them to put you on speaker if they're okay with that. Um, because this kind of knowledge sharing, I think sometimes is best shared with the entire family, so that the family can be more aware and by extension more supportive. So seniors, that message is for you too. Let your community of support in, so that they can be there to support you with some of the information that maybe you missed.
Definitely. Well, that wraps up the questions I had for you today. I'd just like to thank you again for coming in and talking to us. It's been great.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, and hopefully, as I continue to onboard and learn more and have more to share, then I'll be happy to do that in the future as well.